Good morning, guys and girls. Instead of being in the shop today, I'm driving north of Colorado Springs. I'm on my way to Fort Collins. So we're going to do something a little different today. Tell you a little bit about what happened, but also gives us a chance to kind of get to know each other, ask each other questions. First of all, a welder's worst nightmare. Well, what is a welder's worst nightmare? For me, a welder's worst nightmare would be an engineer, welding inspector, working on a federal job where they are overbearingly strict. But also when one of your tools malfunctions. So a welder's tools are like a guy and his dog. A guy's best friend is his dog. Well, I'm a welder. My best friend is my welding machine. And unfortunately, machines, they fail, they wear out, they malfunction, and mine died yesterday. One of my machines died. It was actually one of the first machines I bought when I first started my business, probably the first 6 months from when I transitioned from the red brand over to Forney. Great machines, by the way. But back to the topic. My machine died yesterday. It arced out something nasty and burned up inside, which makes me sad because it's given me a lot of work. It's gotten a lot done and put me in a position to be able to be independent of working for somebody else. But that's okay because I've got a warranty. Forney Industries is a local Colorado-based company. Awesome for me because I'm 2.5 hours away from their headquarters. So I don't know about other people's, company reps, the red, the blue, things like that. But I know that as soon as I burned up that machine yesterday, I was on the phone 5 minutes later with Forney Industries talking to a real person in engineering. These are people that are going to actually put their hands on my machine today. And I had an answer within 5 minutes saying that I could bring my machine up and they'll get it fixed today or tomorrow and I'll have it back. Now, prior to me using a Forney machine, I ran the red brand, which is a good brand. They were dependable. But that's about it. That's about all you get. I've had machines break, and trying to get a hold of somebody to find the solution or troubleshoot or to get it repaired is nearly impossible directly. Let alone trying to find somebody nearly local. I mean, you'd have to go to a distributor or a local supply shop, where you get, your consumables to have to send the machine off. And your machine could be gone for a month, 2 months. Luckily for me, there are a couple dealers in town that do Forney, but I've got a pretty good rapport with Forney, and I gave him a call, and talking to a real person 5 minutes later, and no hesitation. Hey, bring your machine up. Let's get it fixed. I've never encountered that anywhere else in the 22 years that I have been welding as a career. I want you to take that into consideration if you're a current welder, or if you're somebody looking to get into welding, because eventually your equipment is gonna die or malfunction. Because if you're like my company, you know, we're putting 60, 70 hours a week on these machines, and they're gonna wear out, they're gonna break. And you know, when you're running a business, you can't afford to be down for that long. You need to be able to get back and produce, otherwise you get behind real fast. You know, not only do they have great customer service, but their price is awesome. So me, I run several multi-process machines, 3-in-1 units. We have several of them at the shop for the guys, and we do this that way we don't have to buy, you know, separate units for each welding process. You know, they're easy to handle out in the field. They're great for the shop. They're universal in being able to plug into a household plug or into a 220 plug. They're great. They're inverter machines, so they put a lot of power out on a little bit of electricity. And the greatest part about all that is they are about the most reasonable priced welder I have found and used in my career. That is one of the biggest things that had me switch, was the weld quality and the cost of what one of these machines cost. So if you went with a blue or a red machine with a multi-process, depending on which one you're looking at, you could be looking at anywhere from $1,200 to $2,500 for the unit. And your customer service isn't going to be great if it goes down. And you go with a Forney machine, the ones I bought, $850 a whack. 50% of what the base model would be for a red or a blue multi-process. And that blew me away. You know, how can these other companies charge so much for so little, in my opinion? Number one, you're paying for a name. Number two, they're duty cycles, which if you're in school, you will learn something about this. Duty cycle is the percentage of weld run time that you can go per hour, or every 10 minutes if you basically want to chop it down to that. Most of those machines have a 60% duty cycle. Okay, which, you know, with most machines, that's pretty good. My multi-process units that I run with Forney are 100% duty cycle. And the only assumption I can come up with is the way they're inverting the power, but also the cooling inside. My machines, I've ran my machines 10, 15, 20 minutes at a time without stopping. These machines have never once overheated or once shut off, ever. And they cost half of what a red or a blue would cost. So keep that in mind, you know, when you're going to go pick your next machine. Give one a try. If you ever go to an expo show, or if you're in a store that has a demo, a live demo or something like that, ask to try it out, and it's going to blow you away. The way I discovered Forney was actually one of my red machines broke. It overheated because its duty cycle was 60%. I ended up burning it up. Well, a friend of mine had just bought one of their multi-process units. They call it an MP140. And he had bought it at a local ranch supply in Colorado Springs. And so I was talking to him about it. And this is right after I quit working at a steel distribution shop and went into business on my own. So I was in a panic. I'd only been out on my own about 6 weeks, and I had a full order, and I was right in the middle of a massive job. And he's like, hey, borrow my machine, see what you think about it. And so I was a little skeptical at first, never heard of the brand. You know, they're pretty low-key, you know, in my opinion. That was my opinion then anyways, because at that time I was pretty much a die-hard Red brand fan. So I gave it a try and it blew me away. And right then and there, I called him probably within an hour of using the machine, and I was like, hey, where'd you get this? And how much was it? Because I knew right then and there I was going to go get me one. And that's exactly what I did, and I've never looked back. You know, so back to talking about their customer service. You know, I've called a couple times when I've needed troubleshooting, or, you know, I've got questions, you know, things like that. They take care of their customers very well. You're going to talk to a real person. They're going to find out somebody for you to talk to who knows what they're doing. They're not going to put you off. You're not going to be on hold for 30 minutes. They're not going to forget about you. You know, and the greatest part, well, every now and then I get some swag. Recently they sent me this nice hat and some sunglasses, which are right here. And, you know, it's awesome. They take care of their people. And so, you know, between the cost differential and the performance of the machine and how good their customer service is, to me, that really relates to my credo of how I do business. That's one of the main reasons I went into business for myself. Now a little history about me. I started out welding in 1999 as a career. I knew how to weld prior to that because my grandfather taught me. He was a welder in copper mines in Arizona for many years. So he taught me how to weld. And so I was 16, almost 17, and my mom passed away in an accident, and my dad was in the same accident, but survived, but was in no position to be able to work. Now, I was the oldest kid out of 3, and so immediately I knew what I had to do. So at the time I left school, I left high school, and I had an older welding buddy from welding class in high school, you know, back in them days, 20 years ago. Seems like, you know, ancient history, but back in them days, schools still had trade programs, wood shop and welding and auto body and auto shop, and, you know, things that you could actually build a career out of and walk out of high school with something to do. You know, that was kind of your argument and your fight against anybody who said you needed a college degree, otherwise you're never going to amount to nothing, blah blah blah, you know. And so my buddy was 18, you know, he was 2 grades ahead of me, and he worked in a local weld shop, but he got tired of working there and went out in the field. He wanted to be an iron worker, so he got a iron working position with a company in Texas. And, you know, I called him and told him what happened. I was trying to find a job because, you know, I didn't want to lose the house. I had to take care of my family. So he told me, hey, get your gear, get what you can. Here's a list of what you need. Come down to Texas. I think I can get you on with our crew. So I was down in Texas about a week later, I sat on a tool bucket for, about 3 weeks begging for a job. Literally, I'd go out front of this job site every day and just beg for a job. Now granted, yeah, I was underage and they knew it, you know, and you're not supposed to be working underage on job sites. So they kind of basically snubbed me off for 3 weeks. They saw my persistence in, you know, my wanting to work and take care of my family and weld. And finally, after 3 weeks, a position opened up and I was given an opportunity. And I was basically told right there, right then and there, on the spot, I've got till lunchtime to show what I can do. I'd basically never been more scared in my life, but I knew that that was my opportunity. So lunchtime came around and I was still sitting in the job trailer and everybody was asking me questions. So that, you know, that was history. I was around the next day and I stayed an iron worker until I was 25 years old. Mind you, by then, by the time I was 25, I had 8 years of iron working and certified welding experience. 25, I took a fall and ended up breaking my back and a bunch of other bones, and I was out for a little while. Went back once I healed up, and you know, the belt, the gear belt you got to wear is pretty heavy for an iron worker, about 100 pounds. And so my back just really couldn't take it, but I tried to push through it. I was really prideful. Loved what I did. I mean, I used to watch old videos and history on, you know, New York back in the early, you know, 1900s. You know, all these iron workers, construction workers building these skyscrapers. You know, they were my heroes. And so I didn't want to give it up. I pushed through it, but I knew I was coming up on a decision. I wasn't going to be able to physically continue doing it. My back may have healed, but my back was permanently damaged. Now, we were working in 07 on a military installation, and I was doing precast erection at this time, which is basically like iron work, but it's just humongous precast concrete pieces that basically do the same thing, interlocking like Legos. And we had an accident. We had a building come down and kill a buddy of mine and permanently maim another buddy of mine. And I was in the footer ditch underneath where this collapse happened. The only thing that saved my life was being in a 4-foot footer ditch, welding footer connections on a wall. So that was kind of my wake up. So, of course, job site got shut down. We were out of work. So, sitting at home, twiddling my thumbs. What do we do? Well, started looking at getting into metal fabrication. I knew I wasn't going to give up welding. Was not going to give it up. But I couldn't be an iron worker. So, started looking into how I could apply myself in different ways. And this is, you know, a good question to ask yourself, because, you know, there's a lot of people out there that are wanting to learn how to blacksmith, and they're wanting to learn how to weld, you know, and they're going to school for it, and they're trying to break into the industry. And, you know, it's so hard nowadays to find anybody that knows how to do it or willing to teach, unless you're in school. And even school, sure, they show you by the book and this and that, but there's like zero practicality in what they're teaching you, other than weld symbols and actually how to weld. But so I started looking at, you know, what I want to do. I wanted to be a fabricator, so I broke into metal fabricating. We started getting into, rail building, gate building, and I quickly realized that I could be very creative in that. Back in the day when I was an iron worker, you took pride in topping out a building, putting the last piece in. And I was a connector in them days. I was in better shape. I was in great shape, and I got to be a connector. I was on the leading edge of everything. And I took pride in that. But I figured I had to take pride in a different way, and so became a fabricator and realized, my creativity could go a mile, building different railings and doing this and that. For me, I'm very independent. Unfortunately, because I'm independent and very creative, I tend to look at things a little bit different. Bigger companies, bigger shops, their bottom line is $1. Their bottom line is get the work out the door and maximize your profit margins and get your bosses their bonuses, and that's it. No ifs, ands, or buts. And that really, for me, between that and overbearing bosses that want to look down your shoulder at everything you're doing, even though they know you're fully experienced and capable, micromanaging, it started to take the love out of welding for me. I almost gave it up altogether. So I went to college while I was still welding, and I got a double major, 2 bachelor's degree in different business, one in marketing and one in construction technology and so forth, and quickly realized I'm not cut out for it, but it's good knowledge. How am I going to be able to use it in the future? Which was kind of frustrating at the same time, because I had spent all that money on going to college, but knew right away I was not going to sit behind a desk. There was no way. Sitting in front of the computer doing my schoolwork every night until midnight was enough to kill me. I just knew it wasn't for me. It was very depressing, but I was also very depressed working for somebody else, so I started talking about going on my own, and everybody talking about, now just sit back and work for somebody else. You don't have to work for anybody else. You don't want all those problems. You don't want to do all that. I don't know about you guys, but for me, the moment I'm told something, I can't do something, it's like tenfold. I'm gonna do it, and I'm gonna figure out a way to do it. So my last fabrication job for somebody else, me and him didn't get along. The owner, we were cordial, this and that, but he was very overbearing and micromanaged his entire crew. And me, I'm very independent, so we clashed a lot. And I felt like, between the micromanaging and quality and him always wanting to have everything pushed out the door without quality, just really upset me. And finally one day, right in the middle of the week, I'd had it. I went home that night and I talked to my wife, and I said, this is what I got. I'm starting my own business. And I'd already been doing side work, on the side. My business was started, but I was doing it at nights or on the weekends to bring in extra money. But I needed to go full-fledged. And so I needed, more equipment and whatnot. So I took the only $500 I had. And this is important, because a lot of you guys and gals that are just getting started in wanting the metal work, you got to be, very concise in what you want to purchase to get started. because, yeah, welding is very expensive. I mean, everything from materials to machines to the tools. You know, I had $500. That's all I had. If you discount the business license, the formal business license and registration with the state, I had $450. So I bought my basic tools that I was going to need for myself. You know, I bought some magnets and some clamps, and bought me a used machine, and, you know, a square, and, you know, things like that. I didn't even have enough money to build a table. My first rail job, I had to build a 24-foot stair rail on the floor of my shop. And mind you, that's a nightmare when your shop floor is not level at all. I had drains in the shop, you know, for when we pulled vehicles in and, you know, did maintenance and, you know, everything like that. So, you know, blocking up a rail and trying to make sure everything's good to go and whatnot. That was kind of a nightmare, but I persevered. And from that moment on, that was back in 2016 when I first started. I have not slowed down. I've turned that $500 investment in 5 years into multiple employees and six-figure income, six-figure grossing incomes doing metal fabrication on my own. Now, we are a small shop, you know, but we do very good work, and we take our time, and we pride ourselves on customer service and quality. And so we've got a reputation. You know, back to the tool aspect, okay, you got your basic tools. Well, if you're good, you're going to get more work. You know, if you take the time to do the work right the first time, and you don't try to rip somebody off or pass off poor product, you're gonna get more work. You're gonna get paid. And so basically for the first probably year and a half, every time we finished a job, I'd buy another tool, something I needed. You know, for me, I'm the type of guy, I don't buy tools just to buy tools. I buy a tool as a necessity when I need it, which in them days was pretty much about once a week, until I got everything I needed. You know, now I've got everything I need, and I'm a full-fledged operating shop, and I don't have to outsource. So, you know, take your time, guys. Don't panic if you don't have half the stuff. Yeah, you may have to outsource some of it in the beginning, but it's okay. But if you have the basics, if you have a welder and a tape measure and a square, a level, and my most important tool, a digital T-bevel for calculating your angles for, say, stair rail or, you know, wraps or anything like that, you're going to be good. You know, sure, from there, you know, if you got something that needs plasma cut, you might have to outsource all that. But in the big picture of things, that's pretty small. With, you know, the trade being where it is, you can still generate a great profit even with a little bit of outsourcing. The other thing you'll outsource most likely is your powder coat, because most shops aren't going to spend the $50,000 to $100,000 to set up a powder coat operation, you know, which is no big deal. You just figure that into your bidding. So it's a little bit about myself. I've been in business, you know, since 2016. It's now 2021, and you know, we've done good for ourselves, and we continue to grow every day. You know, and it's the greatest feeling in the world, because we get to be independent, we get to be creative, and we get to work with new clients every day, 90% of whom let us be creative and listen to our suggestions, and you know, treat us with dignity and respect, which is more than I can ever say for working for somebody else. I was just not made to do that. Not made to sit behind a desk. You know, there's a lot of people out there getting into this that just want to get their hands dirty and learn and do something. You know, even my brother-in-law, he he's trying to learn. He's got 2 welding machines that were given to him, and he's trying to learn, and he's constantly texting or calling with tips and tricks. And so it's kind of, you know, been fun for me to try to pass it along. You know, nowadays, you know, there's not many vocational programs and trade programs in these schools anymore, unless you go to college for it, and it's sad. You know, I like teaching this stuff. Now, I couldn't be a teacher, but I like teaching it. I like passing it along. You know, several of the jobs I had in the past, I was a foreman, I was a supervisor, and so hiring new people and young people coming into the trade, it was awesome for me. You know, it gave me an opportunity to show them stuff and to see them grow and to allow them to be independent and creative. So, you know, you want to get your hands dirty, whatever the situation is. Whether you're sitting behind a desk, you know, and you're wanting to do something on the weekend, or you're in a welding school and you're just trying to break into the industry, or let's just say you're a DIYer who doesn't want to spend the money to have somebody like me do it, but you want to learn for yourself how to, say, build a rail for your renovation on your house or your deck. You know, that's what inspired me to start this channel. You know, I kind of started with my brother-in-law, watching how he was improving and giving him his pointers, and started giving me ideas. You know, and we're going to be doing a lot of videos, a lot of behind the scenes that I feel, you know, a lot of these creators maybe don't go quite in depth about. Is I want to detail and I want to shoot every step along the way and give you the information to be able to teach yourself how to do this work. Sure, you're not going to learn how to weld in a weekend. I don't care who you are. You need hours under the hood, and I'm talking hours. I mean, if you look at the amount of hours that I've worked, on an average of 2,000 to 2,500 hours a year for 22 years, I'm sitting with somewhere between 45 and 50,000 hours of weld time in my career. Now, can you get pretty decent, you know, in a weekend? Some people do. I taught one lady who kind of apprenticed with me last year, you know, for a couple of months. I taught her the basics in about 20 minutes. And I was able to teach her those basics, and then it was just a matter of her continuing to get under the hood and to stay under the hood. And Ms. Boyle, you know who you are, and I hope you're doing great out there, and thank you for supporting my channel. I hope you're doing bigger and better things. But yeah, you can get steady. The big thing is, don't give up, but go in there knowing that it's going to take a little while. And some of the equipment, yeah, it takes money, but it, you know, the biggest investment, in my opinion, bigger than money, bigger than anything else, is you got to have the heart, and you got to have the mentality to go in and know it's going to take a little while. It's frustrating in the beginning. There's a lot of aspects that nobody looks at that you go into welding, and things you're just not used to, such as, you know, hand placements and balance and depth perception and wearing a helmet and speed and being able to multitask and like count in your head in the beginning. You know, that was one of the biggest things I did in the beginning, learning how to MIG weld, was, you know, I counted in my head on how long I stay in one spot before I start moving with my welding technique. So I always used a 2 count because I like to whip my welder a little bit. So, but I want you guys to know that everything I've said today is very important, especially when you're beginning, because all the time and all the monetary investment you're going to put in is important. You need to have good equipment. You need to have reliable equipment. And if that equipment goes down, you need to be able to get it fixed quick, even if you're a DIYer. Because here's the biggest problem with learning how to weld in the beginning is if you're not doing it consistently, it's not going to stick. So, you know, you need that repetition. Now, the other thing I want to talk about is, you know, and I want you guys to ask me questions. You know, make suggestions on what you would like me to film. I'm going to be doing a lot of in-depth jobs on different rail and gate projects that we do. I'm going to give you step by step. Number one, because we do a lot of different designs. We've got a lot of freedom and creativity. But also because it doesn't matter how many times you do a rail with vertical pickets or a horizontal rail. Each one is different. Every single job is different. You're using different materials, different placement situations. You know, so I'm gonna try to teach you those things. Everything from going out in the field and field measuring a job, to going back to writing that down on paper and calculating everything the old school way, and also, you know, with the more complicated things like railing or floating staircases, being able to get on your drafting program and draw them up. I'm going to teach you all those things. But before we go in depth that far, you got to have the basics. That's very important. Ask yourself why you want to get into it. You know, does it look cool on TV? Or, you know, is that your only reason? Does it look cool? Is it going to be a 2-day thing, a phase that you're going to go through? Or is this something you're willing to stick out? Because I'm telling you right now, if you can stick it out, you just created a potential second wave of revenue, or a way to become independent altogether from whatever you're doing now. I always think back to those teachers in high school that said you ain't going to do anything in your life without a college education. And I'll be the first one to say, because I didn't get my college education until about halfway through my career. Almost when I gave up welding. I crunched the numbers, and being a welder, depending on your trades, what you're doing in the field, or owning your own business, you're making 2 to 3 times as much. Like for me, I had a business degree. Well, I know what the entry-level business salaries are, and I make sometimes 2 to 3 times what they make on a yearly basis. You know, so not only, you know, am I making good money, but I get to work for myself. I get to do what I love. I don't really have to answer to anybody. I just got to be responsible, get up and go to work. I get to crank my music all day long, dance around like an idiot when nobody's looking, and weld. Burn wire, burn rod. It's the greatest thing in the world. And sometimes, yeah, I work too much, and it sucks, you know. Nobody wants to work a weekend or overtime, but I wouldn't give it up for anything. I like my independence. I like my creativity. That has allowed me to have a reputation and to build that reputation in becoming one of the best rail building companies in Colorado Springs. You know, we're not the biggest. By far, we're not the biggest. But those bigger companies know who we are because of the quality of work we put out and the customer service that we administer to our clients. You know, will I say that's a perfect 100%? No. Some jobs don't go according to plan. Some clients are nightmares to work with. I'm not going to say that they're not, because they are out there. But 9 times out of 10, it's worth it. And you're going to be happy with your independence for whatever your reason is. Whether you want to do it on the side or make it a career. You know, it can become a career if you want it. You know, for me, that's all I know. I know how to weld. I know how to metalwork. I don't want to do anything else. You know, I see myself becoming that cranky old 70-year-old man out in the shop, you know, beating on a hammer, beating on something with a hammer and creating something that's going to be there longer than I'm alive. And I take pride in that. So keep that in mind when you're making your decision on what you want to do. For whatever your reason is, just know what the reason is and stick by it. And subscribe and stick with me. You're going to learn a lot. I'm going to teach a lot. You know, and as we speak, if I wasn't driving up here to Fort Collins to Forney Industries today, I would be in my shop filming and doing work, as I was yesterday when one of my machines broke down. But I want to say I've got 2 other videos that are being filmed right now in the works. We're going to try to put one out a week. Week and a half. We'll see how that works out. Sometimes steel work takes a little bit longer. There's a lot that goes into metal work, and that's why I'm setting this channel up the way it is, because it's not a wham bam thank you ma'am type of situation. There is a lot of work that goes into this. This is not a hammer and nails, excuse me. This isn't a piece of wood where you can just, you know, hammer a nail into it and boom, you're done. It doesn't work that way. There's a lot more that goes into this. So stick with me, share it, spread the word. You're gonna learn a lot, and love to do what you're doing. Enjoy it, and if you're not happy, do something about it. You know, if that's breaking off on your own, then do it. Do it smartly. One of the biggest things is living in fear or uncertainty, and I'm speaking from experience. Did I have faith in what I could do as a welder? Absolutely. But is anyone else going to believe me if I go on my own and basically allow me to be able to take care of my family? They did, very quickly. So take all that into consideration, but also remember what I stated at the beginning of this video, which is the equipment you pick is going to be vital to your success and staying on schedule. And the company that I recommend and I will stand behind is Forney Industries. And I'll say straight out, I'm not being paid to say anything about Forney. I am backing them because of what I feel. I'm going to give them their due diligence, because their customer service and their machines are out of this world. Price-wise, performance-wise, customer service, top of the line. And so I just want to thank Forney Industries, and I want to thank all of you for tuning in today. Please hit that subscribe button. I will be releasing another video here in about the next week, and hope you guys have a great day.